This morning's guest worked for credit unions for more than 16 years, but he always had a mission. This morning we'll find out what it is. You'll meet him coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Italian Restaurant of the Year, Villa Romana at 707 South Kings Highway in Myrtle Beach. We're focused on mission and ministries, and we're visiting with the Director of Adult Ministries at First Presbyterian Church of Myrtle Beach, Todd Harms. Good morning, Todd.
Good morning.
And the husband of our lovely producer, Sherry Harms. Yes.
Absolutely.
How about it? Great to get you back in.
Thank you for having me.
I think it's been a little more than a year since we were last together, and a lot happening, of course, in your life, and we want to get a little update as to what's been happening, what's been going on.
Well, just kind of settling into my job at First Presbyterian. Actually, August 1st was my second year anniversary, and so there are some things that I'm kind of getting accustomed to and figuring things out. We sent our son off to college in the last year, and so that was a big adjustment for my wife and I. And, of course, our daughter will be a junior this upcoming year at Waccamaw High School.
Oh, yeah, down in Georgia.
That's right. That's right. So we're
Those
excited
are big
about that.
Transitions there, absolutely. So
Yes.
she has 2 more years.
Yes.
A lot happening in Georgetown, Canada. That's a little bit of a drive for you guys, Todd, from
It is.
Pawleys Island up
It
to
is.
1300 North Kings Highway, and of course for the Harold's location there at the back gate of the former Air Force Base. I mean, that's a real. How long does that normally take in the morning?
Anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes, really depending on traffic.
Wow.
And we both enjoy just our involvement in Myrtle Beach.
Right.
We also enjoy, sometimes the solitude of living in Pawleys and kind of having a retreat there.
For late night meetings and stuff like that, it could be tough going home and then coming back. But at the same
sometimes.
time, in the summertime, it's probably a little tougher
That's right.
than in the other 8 months of the year.
That's right.
So it's been, 2 years now? Golly.
2 years.
That is 2 years and 10 days now since today's the 11th.
That's right.
The time just flies, doesn't it?
It does. It does. And it's been a great 2 years. It's been a whirlwind. Really enjoy, the different things that I'm involved with. But it's time flies. So
Incredible. As you look back over the last 2 years, are there some things that you expected when you were leaving the vice president's position there at Carolina Trust Federal Credit Union, coming into the position there? I think the position has evolved a little bit as well.
it has. I left Carolina Trust Federal Credit Union and came to the church as the director of adult education.
Right.
And shortly after, within that first year, Howard Barnard, who is, I count as one of my mentors.
Oh, yeah.
He chose to kind of retire. I don't think someone like Howard ever retires. He's moved on to focus on something else. He's still very involved at the church and as a teacher and as a volunteer in a lot of the different capacities that his job entailed. But and so that when he left, that added to my position, mission, volunteerism, those kinds of things, new member assimilation, evangelism. So some tough stuff, but exciting ground to cover. So.
Well, we want to cover some of that. New member assimilation is a big deal. When folks hear the Director of Adult Ministries, is that a title that's indicative at all churches? Is there normally large churches like First Presbyterian Church of Myrtle Beach is, if not the largest, one of the largest congregations in Horry and Georgetown counties?
My experience so far, and understand that I worked in credit unions for years.
Right.
And so, the church, it's curious to think of it as an industry, but truly, it is like any other. And I think that churches tend to do their own thing and kind of plan and create positions to really highlight an individual's talent, experience, passion. I know that that's kind of what First Presbyterian does, how we go about things. We look at what do individuals do best, and we try to pair them, with that particular area.
Sure, sure. You mentioned new member assimilation. That assimilation's a big word here early on a Monday morning.
That's right.
But new members is not. Share with viewers a little bit about the First Presbyterian Church's approach to new members and how they assimilate them into the congregation.
One of the most important things that we can involve ourselves in really is a commitment to new members to make sure that they are assimilated into the life of the church there at First Presbyterian.
Right.
And so as people start to visit the church, our senior minister, Bobby Wilkes, he makes a commitment to call each of those folks on the very first day, the first time that they are in worship with us on Sunday morning. They get a call, from the church, from Dr. Wilkes, by day end.
Wow.
And so that's kind of the start of this assimilation process. And then as we go through that, we've adopted a formula that is kind of worship plus two. And worship plus two incorporates, obviously, worship.
Right.
And in addition to worship, study and service. And so the suggestion is that if a new member, and, all members,
founding members,
that kind of the formula for success is to be engaged in those three areas of ministry in some way. And everyone's definition of that is going to be a little different.
Right.
The worship experience that you choose, whether it's early or later on Sunday, perhaps it's Wednesday at our spiritual surge service that's led by Reverend Chris Denny. But choose a worship experience, and choose more than one, if you like. Also be engaged in study, also be engaged in service. And so study, you have all kinds of opportunities to take a class, learn, expand your horizons. And then service, that's a particular passion of mine. But, engage in some sort of mission opportunity.
You mentioned the Wednesday, the one that Reverend Chris Denny does.
Yes.
I don't think I was familiar with that, even as a member of the church, Todd. Hadn't been familiar with that. Of course, the services on Sundays are 8:45 and 11.
That's right.
And then there's Sunday school at 10 a.m.
That's right.
So there's even an additional, aside from all the many classes that can be taken, Sunday school related, and throughout the week, a class that can be taken. What is the event, the Surge, you mentioned on Wednesdays?
The spiritual surge is designed for, originally it was for kind of the busy professional to have kind of an opportunity midweek to come to church and just kind of, recharge. And it's a great opportunity. It's held in the fellowship hall. And it's 12 noon on every Wednesday. It'll kick off here in a few weeks for the fall, and it's lunch is $5, and it's usually something simple like a bowl of soup and a sandwich, maybe a salad,
Right.
And you come and you have lunch, and you participate in this worship experience, and it's still a traditional kind of worship experience, but it's Chris will kind of include perhaps a multimedia, presentation, a little different music, or a little, the service would vary a little bit from something you might see on Sunday morning, because you have less time to, once lunch is served and that.
Right.
But it's always a great experience, and it's a neat opportunity to see, your church friends kind of midweek. So.
That's tremendous. So I want to talk a little more about worship, service, and study, and how that really fits into if it's a key to success there of being a member of First Presbyterian Church. But if a viewer needs to get off to work now, Todd, or get family out of the house, is there a good phone number for someone to call to learn more about the church, or even a website if they had questions? There's good frequently asked questions and times and otherwise that we may not get into this morning.
That's right. The phone number would be obviously 843-448-4496.
Good.
The website is just myrtlebeachpresbyterianchurch.org.
Okay, great. And if a viewer had questions, is there anyone there in particular to ask for? Would you feel comfortable to ask for Todd? Or
Absolutely.
Just anyone who answers the phones is probably can.
I'd be glad to be the one, to start that conversation.
Great,
and point them in the right direction.
Is the W+2 really a secret of success there at First Presbyterian Church? How did y'all come up with that exactly? I mean, is that something that you'd been searching for on your own, or that they've been thinking about for a long time?
It's always been kind of an emphasis for Dr. Wilkes, and he just recognizes the importance of engaging new members early on so that they become engaged in all that the church has to offer. The different program staff there at First Presbyterian works really hard, to be innovative and to offer things that are well accepted and received by the congregation and things that people want to engage in. So it's not a big chore. It's really just increasing awareness so that members and the community at large know what's available at First Presbyterian.
Absolutely, and we'll talk a little more about some of the amazing things that are available to the entire community at large. I guess everything really is available to the community at large.
Oh, absolutely.
Surely particular things that are spearheaded, maybe even different than other congregations here in the area. I understand there's a theory that our younger generation are missing out on some aspects in church in general. Am I correct? Just share with viewers a little behind that.
Sure.
In talking to your wife and obviously trying to help come up with some good questions. Who better to talk to than your wife about some good questions? And she had shared with us a little bit about potential concerns there about the younger generation.
Right. It's kind of an interesting deal as young people start to go out on their own, and it doesn't have anything to do with, a negative experience oftentimes. It's just kind of prioritizing that new life and that new schedule, and things get lost in transition. And we have, a great relationship with the young people at our church. This theory, is kind of widespread. It's nationwide, and it's just this theory that 20-somethings and often leads into early 30s, are lost in church, and they don't. That doesn't become a priority again until perhaps they're married, or perhaps they have children, and then they recognize kind of the importance of the tradition that is church. And we want to kind of get rid of that notion,
right.
and engage young people, 20-somethings, early 30s, back into the life of our.
What are some ways the church is trying to do that?
I think my personal feeling on that is that we need for young people to know that we need them, that we, the different service opportunities that we mentioned earlier on, that's the way to a young person's heart, because our young people are socially conscious, and they want to help, and they want to make a difference. And that, in my opinion, is the best way, to catch them. And people are busy, careers are more demanding than ever. And as a young person, you're focused on making your mark early on, to make a difference in, promotions and moving up the corporate ladder. I remember that all too well. But, to kind of suggest or remind that you don't have to make a choice between the two is an important reminder.
Right. You highlighted earlier that you're also responsible for adult education, so that ties in quite a bit in addition to adult ministries. When someone hears the word adult, what is that cutoff? I mean, essentially, is there a youth director that would handle things up to a certain age before it's passed off to you?
There's our youth minister, Ansel Talbert,
right. Yes.
And he's responsible for middle school and high school, and does a great job of handling those programs.
Sure.
And engaging those students in ministry.
Right.
As they kind of head off to college, that becomes my area of responsibility. Although, Ansel and I work very closely together.
Sure.
So that transition is made a little easier because we don't define it that closely. He and I work together on a lot of different things. I volunteer for him when it comes to youth,